Um, Hello, hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for logging in back to the webinar Real People, Real Stories by Praan Wellness. It takes a lot to believe that there's nothing left for you to do in life, and there is nothing left for you to look forward to, and you don't know that, or you don't think that, you want to wake up this night when you sleep. What we're doing here today is we're trying to capture thoughts and trying to capture feelings, emotions, and to some extent the actions that an individual might take when they're contemplating suicide. We are very happy to have one suicide warrior with us here today. And thank you so much for agreeing to come and speak with all of us today. And in the next few minutes, we're going to have a discussion about what the thoughts were, what the feelings were, and what was the best way to find help. So just stay tuned and we'll directly get to the talking today. So, hey, hi, how are you? How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Just have a bit of cold, but I'm fine.
Um, First of all, I really want to thank you for coming forward. And I know we've had a conversation about it, about this entire thing. Um, I know it might be a little difficult, but the fact that you're here to talk about suicide, attempting suicide, and what you went through is very courageous because I know it takes a lot of courage from your end and the feeling that you really want to help people and, like talk it out and, let other people know that, there is other possibilities to get help. Really hats off to you and thank you for agreeing to do this.
Thank you. I'm just trying to do my bit,
No.
and yeah. So let's get to it then.
Yes, perfect. So, what I really want to understand from you is when you attempted suicide,
Mm-hmm.
what were your thoughts and feelings? Like, what were you thinking? Maybe like what were you feeling when you went ahead to attempt what you attempted?
Um. So obviously, when you're in such a state where you feel like taking your life is the only option, there's not one but many things that keep running in your mind. And most of the times, it's like a vortex. Your brain's in a vortex, or like the dominoes are just falling, and you're just getting sucked into it, and you attempting suicide might feel like your way to take back control of the situation, of the suffering, to like end the pain. So that is generally what happens. Even if you plan something or whatever, I think most of them are impulsive. Like mine was an impulsive decision in the end to just have some control in all this helplessness that I was feeling.
So, would it be right for me to say that, you felt so hopeless and you felt so helpless and you felt so powerless over the situation that maybe this entire act was your way of, getting back or winning back the power that you think you had lost?
Yeah.
Right, fair enough. So, I believe it's been some time that you attempted to, take your life. Today, when you look
Mm.
back at that incident of, getting into the, for the lack of a better word, trance, or like you said, getting into the moment of, trying to take your life and, think back on the incident. How do you feel about, this incident? Like, do you ever replay it in your mind? And if you do, what are your thoughts and feelings related to the incident today?
So I do replay it in my mind sometimes. I definitely do. Just so that I could see what were the things that were readily there that could be, like not like when it's an impulsive thing, you have to make sure the things that help that impulsive decision are not available. So that slows you down and that forces you to just sleep it off or you know because you cannot do anything about it, so you need to make sure what your impulsive reach outs are at that point of time and just make sure they're not there in the first place, whatever that is for you.
So, so when you say impulsive reach outs, do you mean in terms of the actions that cause you to impulsively do this, or do you mean like the instruments or the things, or do you mean both?
Mostly both, but I would focus on the instruments more.
Okay, so what is available for you to harm yourselves around? You need to shelf it away.
Yeah, keep it away. Make it very inconvenient for you to reach out to them. Very inconvenient. See, another thing is these things. Um, you get really desperate at night when you're unable to sleep. Sleeplessness adds to it. So you need to make yourself aware that when something's happening, you just need to turn off your head, not listen to it for a while, and just go to sleep or something. Because you should know not to listen to it all the time.
So it's basically like kind of distancing yourselves away from it, because from what I gather, whatever the situation is, if you have control over it, you might be able to control it, but I'm sure there are sometimes situations that you do not have a control over. So it's best to
Yeah.
be precautious and keep yourselves away from anything that could be of prominent danger.
Yeah, or a trigger or anything. Just like if something triggers you, don't watch it. If you don't feel happy looking at anybody's social media, feel unfollow them.
So
You can choose not to look at Instagram all day. I'm not saying boycott everything. You don't have to. You still want to be in the loop. But if someone's uh feed is making you very unhappy, unfollow it. Don't see it. You don't have to do something.
so
Or
the
you can just you can do those hide from your storyline things, so you can still follow them, but they're not in your everyday view.
so the idea is to cut yourselves off, like identify your triggers and cut yourselves
Yeah,
off. Why?
because your mind has a beautiful way of warping things very horribly for the worst sometimes,
I know.
especially when you're depressed. It warps everything into something that'll never get solved, or that'll never get better, but does get better.
And you have to believe that it's going to get better.
It is going to get better. You just have to. I mean, it's not just believing in it blindly. You obviously have to work towards it. It's not just going to land onto your lap. But yeah, at the moment, when you're not in a good state, acknowledge you're not in a good state. For the first thing, you need to acknowledge your feelings and then do what you can do to avoid making it worse.
I'd agree. I'd
If
agree
you
with
have,
you.
sorry.
Yeah, I'd agree with what you're saying, is what I was saying.
Yeah, and if you have a supportive friend or you have a good supportive environment, that always helps.
So, when you're talking about things like, cutting yourselves off, or, looking at, a supportive environment and things like that, it really interests me to know what are
Hmm.
the changes that you made to your life after your
Hmm.
attempted suicide to make sure that, you wouldn't go back.
Yeah, I think the first thing would be, to seek help. I was already on medication, but, going back to your psychiatrist or your psychologist, seeking therapy, it'll be the first option that you need to do. If you have attempted to kill yourself, you need to reevaluate all these, and you need to go over your medication list, or your therapist, and you need to talk it out, and you need to address what made you do this. You need to address the root cause sometimes. And the second thing I absolutely believe is you need to start having some amount of physical activity. Start it out as just walking and exercising. Do something, but I cannot emphasize how good exercising can be for you, mental health wise and physical health wise. You might not like it. You might hate exercising. You might not find the motivation to work out. But that's the thing about it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to look for any motivation. You just have to do it. And you just have to keep doing it. You just have to keep exercising it. And then you'll get to a good point and you'll understand why that was so important.
So So from what you're saying, that it basically gives you the outlet for to kind of like keep moving. Is that how exercising is important?
Yeah, you need to get the energy out. You cannot just sit and, expect to feel better. You need to do something. I think us, we all are, we like to express in physical ways, right? So when we work out and we get the energy out, it helps us, one, it tires you up, okay? If it doesn't do anything, it'll tire you up. It'll set you for a good night's sleep. And that is at least 20% of your work done just by exercising.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think I kind of relate to what you said in the previous, like, just a few minutes ago, that, maybe the nights are more difficult than the day is because, maybe in the day
yeah,
you're like occupied. And then, when you're like sleepless at night, you just tend to like, drive to, get hold of something because that's when all the
mm,
thoughts keep coming in, and exercising kind of tires you out. So if nothing,
yeah,
it's definitely going to help you sleep better, thereby like reducing the risk of you acting on impulse.
yes,
All right.
that definitely helps.
Yeah. I think thank you for that perspective. Um,
Mm.
what if somebody comes up to you today and they tell you or they share with you that they're suicidal? What would your reaction be to them, or how would you speak with them?
First thing would be just hear them out. Like, they want to talk for an hour, let them talk for an hour. Hear them out completely. And um, I think we are, like, all of us, we have this misconception right now where we think uh, about emotions in general. It's just that we need to be happy all the time. Like, if you feel sad for a while, oh, you're depressed, or you cannot be sad at all. You just need to be happy all the time, and that's the ultimate goal. But that's the thing. That's the whole fallacy. I feel because you will never be happy all the time, and that's the thing. You shouldn't be happy all the time. There's something called a balance, and I don't know if I can explain it in such short time, but feeling all emotions is human. And if you wouldn't feel sad at a certain point of time because of the situations, I mean, if you do feel sad, it's just because you're human. And that's a very natural thing for you to feel. Feeling sad is not a bad thing. Sometimes you don't feel happy all the time, and that's not a bad thing. But if, you really think your situation's really bad and you want to end it, or you feel that way, the number one thing I ask you to do is, can you just talk to a professional once? Seek help, because whatever it is, um, there's always a solution. Even though it doesn't seem like it, you will find it.
So, so when somebody comes out to you, what you ideally do is you would listen to them even if they want to pour out their heart for an hour, and you would ask them to speak to somebody who can actually help, or maybe give a different perspective, and just to help you through even before you go ahead and you act on it. Uh, do you think that generally, you know,
Hmm.
irrespective of people wanting to attempt suicide or not, do you feel that they find it very difficult to voice out their emotions in general, and maybe is there where the problem is, that they feel that they're going to be okay, or that they're sad and they should be able to handle it on their own? What is it? Where is this coming
Hmm.
from?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think anyone wants to know. So nobody wants anybody else to know that they can be weak. Nobody wants to show their weakness up. Nobody wants to cry in front of anybody else, and you know, all these things of trying to portray to be stronger than you actually are, and all that. That's where you take a hit, because you've been putting up a front for so long. You eventually break down, and even when you're talking to your own friend, you don't feel like crying in front of them because, oh, they'll just see me as, in your head you'll be like, they'll just think I'm a weak person. But in reality, you need to vent these feelings out. You need to get these feelings out of your system. You need to cry sometimes. And that's perfectly normal, to cry your eyes out because something's bad, or some situation, is really troubling you. It's absolutely normal to cry your eyes out. And when you need it, you need it.
And
All you don't always have to put up a strong face, or put up a strong front in front of everyone.
yeah. While I actually second what you're saying, that it's very important for people to speak out and or talk about how they're feeling, or and like cry their eyes out, like you've just said. I think in the equilibrium, we also need more and more people who are ready to actually empathetically listen to them. Like
Yeah,
actively listen to them and stop what they're doing, because at times this could be a very big cry for help. And
yeah.
I just want to tell you that if you ever feel that there is somebody who really needs you to listen to them, if you have the time, go for it. But you might not always have the time, but you might know that this person needs help. So try to reach out to people around you who can help. You could ask them to seek therapy. You could ask, if you know somebody else with whom, if this person speaks, there's a chance they might feel slightly better. Act upon it. I think what's harmful is to ignore this. And there's
Yeah.
this big misconception that I don't want to talk about suicide with a person who I believe is suicidal, maybe because I'm going to like you know make them want to do it, or I'm going to like progress their thoughts, or I'm going to give them ideas. But I think you can second me when I'm saying this, that this is a
Hmm.
big misconception, that if a person is coming and talking to you about it, or maybe contemplating or ideating suicide, talking
Hmm.
about it to this person is a very
Hmm.
helpful act in telling them that help is available. Would you think that's right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it wasn't at the core thing. You feel like attempting suicide because you feel that there's no help for you. Nobody can help you. So that's why you're trying to end the pain. That's why we come back, and that's why you attempt suicide. But talking about it and knowing that there is help out there, and there are people out there who have felt what you have felt, and now they're doing a lot better, and there is hope for you too, is what I think is really important.
Thank you for sharing this one bit. And I think with this, we also like kind of break a very big misconception or a myth that people have about, reaching out
Hmm.
to people who may be, suicidal. On one of my last questions for you here today, I'm going to request you just to shed a little light upon how does our society view
Hmm.
suicide, and how does it project it in comparison to how it really is, or what the reality behind it is. And if you could just talk about that a little.
Um, our society sensationalized suicide. That's what it does. It Most of the time where we see, when we hear about suicide, it's not spoken to like a person who has been struggling, with some sickness. That's the whole thing, even with mental illness. We still haven't reached to a point where people start treating it as a on an equal, footing with physical illnesses. Because it is hard for people with mental illnesses sometimes, even though it's not like physically seen, right? When you hear about suicide on the news, or in through word of mouth, whatever, I think it's really important to understand that there was a person, he was struggling, he was sick, and he didn't get the help he needed in time. It wasn't like he might have sent out many calls for help, and had nobody to help him at that point of time. But it is never, and it's not what everyone talks, sorry, it's It's never something that people do to gain attention. That's not what it is. But that's all what people talk about in the aftermath of the whole thing. And it just morphs after one thing to another, and then it's just there is no respect given to the person who was struggling for so long and just you know couldn't deal with it anymore, and that's sad.
It is.
I think humanizing it, you need to humanize that person. He was a human being, or she was a human being, and she couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't a call for help. I mean, a cry for, oh, nobody's giving me any attention, so I'm just going to do this and I'm going to have a good amount of attention. Nobody's looking for attention in the afterlife. Yeah, I mean, there are people, um, I don't understand what their logic is generally when they do or talk about it in a certain way, but yeah, nobody's doing it for attention.
Yeah, and I think, the way you present it, I think it's a big message for the entire society that,
Yeah.
of course, it is the person, it is, how they're finding it difficult to cope with things. But I think it's always important to separate the person from the act. And if
Mm.
there are so many suicides, at least according to WHO, if there are, like, according to WHO, if there are like more than 8 million, roughly suicides in the span of an
Mm.
year. So I think as a society, we need to wake up. It's said that every 40 seconds that, a person takes their lives. And
Mm.
if this is happening, then I think as a society, we're failing and we really, really, really need to step up. We need to break the taboo. We need to stop the stigma. Like you said, we need to, also respect the person's difficulties in coming till here. Understand that,
Mm.
there is a person who's crying for help. And the day we start doing our bit, I think it can be easy for many, many, many of us out there who are maybe struggling but are unable to, speak about it. So I just want to tell you thank you so much. Like I said in the beginning, I'm sure this does take a lot of courage from your end to come and speak about it. But to hear, from you what your thoughts are as a person who's struggled, as a person who suffered, and as a person who survived, I'm sure that you could be the voice of many out there who need that strength to keep going and to know it's going to be absolutely all right. So thank you for coming in, thank you for stepping up, and thank you for speaking with us. um, and that's it from my end for you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for having me, and you're very kind. And I honestly hope that it helps someone, anyone. I'll be really happy.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Bye bye.